Hi, Daily Movie Recap here. Today I'm going to explain an American horror film called The Autopsy of Jane Doe. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The movie starts with a horrific murder. Soon after, the crime scene is covered with cops and the investigation immediately starts. But there were one too many strange things about the crime scene. A corpse of a Jane Doe that has no connections to the victim was found.
Who's she?
Well, for now, she's a Jane Doe.
Not being able to find any connections between the case and the corpse, the cops decide to send it for an autopsy. Meanwhile, Austin and Tommy had been running an autopsy center as a family business for 3 generations. They were also busily conducting the autopsies that day. After finishing up, as Austin is cleaning up by himself, he hears something strange outside. Emma, who was supposed to go on a date after work, came to the autopsy center. First time coming to Austin's work, Emma was full of curiosity and wanted to see the corpses herself. Wasn't she scared, wanting to look at all the corpses? Austin declines, telling Emma that his dad probably wouldn't allow it, but for some reason his dad allowed it.
Oh, are you serious?
Are you?
Hell yeah.
The corpse that Emma chose had a bell tied to its feet. This bell was to differentiate between the dead and coma patients. If the bells made noises, it meant that the patient was still alive. Anyways, while she was taking a look at the corpses, Emma was curious of the faces, and as she tries to unfold the cloth, Austin stops her. It's a sense of ethics. You can't just look at the corpses as you please. But for some odd reason, Tommy allowed it as well. Afterwards, Austin and Emma headed outside for their date, and just in time, a corpse came rushing into the center. It was a strange corpse from the beginning of the movie. Tommy tells Austin to go on his date and that he can do it by himself, but Austin was feeling uneasy leaving his dad alone to work. So eventually he apologized to Emma and heads back to the autopsy center to help his dad. He shouldn't have done that. This corpse has no identification, no fingerprints, and not a single clue about it.
B&E gone haywire. But what I can sell is her. It's gotta be tonight. Okay.
Without being able to get a name, Austin and Tommy named it Jane Doe, which is what you called an unidentified woman, and starts to conduct the autopsy.
Performing the autopsy will be myself, Tommy Tilden, attending coroner. I will be assisted by Austin Tilden.
First, they start with the external autopsy, but the outside of the corpses had no issues. There weren't any bruises, wounds, or scars. But the insides were a bit strange. First, the pupils were gray, and for some reason the wrists and the ankles were all broken.
When do you think she died?
She's colder than the ambient temperature.
Look how small her waist is.
Mark it down on the board. We'll come back to it later.
And as they opened their mouth to check, my goodness, the tongue had been cut off and the left bottom molar had been removed. Inside was also a thin string. As they conducted the autopsy, the identity of the corpses fell more into a mystery. How on earth did this woman die? They take a rest before officially starting the internal autopsy. In order to change the mood, they turn on a song on the radio and start the autopsy again, but a different song starts to play. The frequency gets interrupted all the time, so they don't pay much attention, but we are definitely paying attention to it. In order to check the insides, they cut open the belly, but a corpse that can't bleed starts to bleed. Due to the time, the blood should have hardened. The bleeding was strange, but for now, they put it into a sample container to check later. The strange things are piling up as they continue with the autopsy. And they find another weird thing. The lungs were burned to a crisp. Not only the lungs, but other organs were badly injured. How can the insides have suffered such injuries when the outside is fine? At that moment, a strange noise came from outside. Austin goes out to check. They always go out alone in scary situations like this. While looking around, he finds a human silhouette through the mirror halls, but of course nothing is there. In the meanwhile, he hears something from the vent in the office.
What the hell happened?
Tommy comes into the office because of the sudden ruckus. After calming down, he flashes inside the vents, and inside is Tommy's injured cat. After calming down, Tommy and Austin resumes conducting the autopsy. They had a long way to go if they were to finish by tomorrow morning. And soon after, something that should have never be found in the stomach was uncovered. It was a critically poisonous flower that anesthetizes people. They still can't figure out what actually happened to this woman. Anyways, this flower can only be found in the northern region, and the fact that she came from the north is the first clue found. Meanwhile, as if it was angry, the thunder roared throughout the night. Austin says he doesn't feel good about it and asks to postpone the autopsy for a day, but Tommy promised the cops that they would be finished by tomorrow. If his dad was going to continue on, he had no choice, so on with the autopsy. Once again, something strange was in the stomach. The missing molar with a paper with strange writings wrapped around it. The meaning or the identity of the writing was unknown.
Stomach acid should have dissolved this thing. I mean, the fact that it's intact at all. Roman numerals?
What ammo have we seen so far?
The corpse's condition until now was indescribably horrific and strange. The outsides were fine, but the eyes were gray and the tongue was cut out. And the insides, she had anesthetic poisonous flowers and molars wrapped in a cloth with unknown writings written in her liver. What do all these mean? And not to mention her organs were all cremated. It appeared as if it was a sacrifice ready to be put on an altar. But it is the 21st century, that imagination didn't make sense. Anyways, Tommy continues to search the corpse. But then, a strange song comes out of the radio again.
One thing's for sure, you're not going anywhere.
After truly realizing that something is wrong, Austin begs to get out of that place. But Tommy discovers something from the corpse and removes the skin. My god. Inside the skin was the same writing as the ones on the cloth from before. What are these writings? And all of a sudden, all the lights go out. After regaining consciousness, all the doors to the corpse storage was opened, and finally getting a sense of crisis, Austin and Tommy decide to escape from that place. But the elevator heading outside the building isn't working, and the door connected to the outside is blocked by a fallen tree. In addition, the signals were unavailable, so they had to go back into the office to contact the outside with a landline. Somehow they successfully called. It's soon disconnected. At that moment, a bell rings outside the office. The exact bell that confirms whether the corpse is alive or not. Austin checks the halls through the door gap. There, something is walking with the bell on. It starts to shake the door like crazy. After a while, outside became quiet, and Tommy washes his hands and tries to relax. He felt someone's presence behind the curtains. Tommy is being dragged inside by something. Later, Austin finds Tommy full of bruises. Tommy tells him that he thinks the person that attacked him was Jane Doe, but he couldn't believe what he was saying. So thinking that everything that had happened was due to Jane Doe that came into the autopsy center, Tommy and Austin decide to cremate Jane Doe. In order to escape from this nightmare as soon as possible, they start to burn Jane Doe. The flames spread fast and started to burn the whole autopsy center. Panicking, Tommy and Austin starts to put out the fire with an extinguisher. The uncontrollable flames went out quickly, and they check up on the women. My god, the women's corpse didn't have a scratch on it. Then they hear the elevator moving. They rush out the autopsy room and head for the elevator. But the elevator doors were shut. Something with ringing bells was approaching. Thankfully, then, the elevator arrived, but the doors wouldn't close. The bells were getting closer and closer. Tommy starts to swing an axe at the figure. My god, the figure was Austin's girlfriend, Emma. And as they were locked in an elevator panicking, Austin says that they are going to be dead soon, but finding out what happened to Jane Doe might be the key. So finally, they start an autopsy on Jane Doe's brain. After checking the brain tissues, Austin was lost in words. Tommy also checks the brain tissue. My god, she wasn't dead yet, she was still alive. Then, something came to Austin, and he starts to fold the cloth found before. There, a location in the Bible was written. With the writings on the cloth, they found out that she was a victim of a witch hunt. Tommy assumes that she was doing all this in order to get revenge for the pain and the wrongful death she suffered. And Tommy pleads to the corpse to save his son, saying that he would do anything to help. And Tommy's body starts to change like Jane Doe, one by one. Tommy collapses with the growing pain from his wrists and ankles. As Tommy feels exact same pain the woman felt, her color of her eyes and her body was becoming normal. But Tommy couldn't bear the pain anymore. Eventually, Tommy asked to end his life. But he couldn't kill his father. Will Austin grant his father, Tommy's request? What is the identity behind Jane Doe, the one who is raining its curses on him? Until now, it was The Autopsy of Jane Doe, the movie. The movie, The Autopsy of Jane Doe, is a horror and thriller movie about a father and son locked in an autopsy center after conducting an autopsy on a mysterious corpse. This movie starts and finishes with an autopsy of a woman, Jane Doe's corpse. Dealing with the corpse in more detail than a medical drama, this movie received an unexpected evaluation from medical students. But just looking at the movie itself, before the final twist is revealed, the story is boring and has a lot of disappointments along the way. But the way the story and materials unfolded was unique and fresh. For those who are tired of the typical horror and thriller movies, I give you The Autopsy of Jane Doe, and we'll wrap it up here. Until now, it has been Daily Movies Recap. Thank you.
Wish I knew where I was going now, 'cause I'm not the same that I used to be. But some things don't change, yeah, some things don't change, but you're just as